People often talk about burnout like it's a personal problem. Something about stress tolerance, resilience, mindset, but there's a quieter structural piece underneath it. And it has to do with something that used to exist in most systems: recovery. Not vacation, not self-care, recovery. The time it takes for effort to reset. For a long time, most systems had some version of this built in. Work came in waves. There were pushes. Then there were slower periods. Deadlines created intensity, but that intensity was temporary. After the push, the system eased. That easing wasn't charity. It was part of the design. Recovery made the next push possible. But systems don't always lose things dramatically. Sometimes they lose them quietly. Recovery is one of those things, because recovery is rarely written down. There are policies about deadlines, policies about output, policies about accountability, but very few policies about recovery. And anything that isn't explicitly protected becomes easy to remove, not maliciously, gradually. Technology sped systems up. Communication accelerated. Visibility increased, deadlines tightened, and slowly the gaps between pushes disappeared. The waves flattened. What used to be a rhythm became a constant line. At first, people compensated. They absorbed the extra load, they pushed a little longer, stayed a little later, answered a few more messages, because short-term effort is often invisible. The system still looked like it was working. Deadlines were still met. Output still appeared. Nothing looked broken on the dashboard. But that extra effort had a cost. It wasn't just a cost the system could see, because the cost was being paid somewhere else, in recovery time, in attention, in people quietly absorbing strain. Over time, something subtle happened. Endurance stopped being temporary. It became assumed. What used to be a push became a baseline. And once endurance became the baseline, recovery looks like a luxury, or worse, a weakness. That's when language starts to change. You start hearing words like engagement, commitment, responsiveness, availability. Words that sound neutral, but often just mean constant output. And if recovery isn't protected anywhere in the system, something else happens. People start protecting themselves, quietly. They pace, they slow down, they stop sprinting all the time. Not because they stopped caring, but because they learned the system doesn't reset on its own anymore. From the outside, that adjustment can look confusing or disappointing. But from the inside, it's often the only stable response left. When recovery isn't defended structurally, people defend it individually. And that's one of the quiet ways work cultures change. Not through announcements, not through revolutions, just through millions of small adjustments people make to stay functional. If you've noticed that shift, you are not imagining it. You're noticing the absence of something that used to exist: recovery. And systems rarely announce when something like that disappears. But people feel it almost immediately.